Hello, everyone. I'm going to demonstrate making a decorative piece of paper using stencils. So I prepared a half sheet of Canson or Fabriano. I think this is the Fabriano. Um, and so I just took a full sheet, folded it in half, and tore it into one half. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate. You can make as many as you want of this. I just want you to make at least one for the project that you can then use for the covers of your book. So I've got 4 different colors of ink pad here and 4 different brushes because they're different enough to where I would want to do that because I don't want to get other color, red into the gold and whatever. And so I've got 4 different ones. If you only have one, that's fine. You can just do different intensities and layers of color, color over color. And but if you have a couple, that would be great. You don't have to have 4. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to go ahead and just really do it. So I have a bunch of stencils that I've just had over time. This is made using the screw punch. This is made from that Duralar, which is nice because then I can just wash these and reuse them. But you can also use even the Canson paper or some kind of cardstock paper. I showed you earlier how to use mail. Like if you have something that comes in the mail, like those cards that are slick coated paper, those are really good to use because you're probably just going to throw them into the recycling anyway. So they're a good thing to use, like a cardstock that's slick, because you could wipe that off if you needed to. But this is what I'm going to use for today. Oh, I can see some of the holes aren't completely popped, but that's okay. And so I've got my lightning bolts, and I've got the positive and the negative shape here to use. And so I'm just going to try some different things. So I think I'm going to start with the large image first. So I'm going to move these 2 smaller ones out of my way. And, this is kind of a, there's not some process that I'm going to tell you to do, or, it's really up to each person. And you're going to kind of get a feel for what you want to do. I like to do very random patterns. So I'm just pouncing my brush into the stencil. And then I'm just going to start kind of in the middle of the paper. So I'm not trying to make some regular pattern. I'm just going to kind of do it all the way around. Oop, there I got a little too dark. So I'm going to pull towards the center from the edge here. I might try to get dark on this side as well, just so it looks intentional. So once I start going, I kind of lose myself in it, which is, part of the beauty of doing this, is to not get too caught up in it and just kind of feel it. Okay, so there's one image. And then I'll just come down and do another one. So I don't have to keep consistent with one color. I can mix it up, and I probably will as I go along. But underneath here, you can see I have newsprint. I have a piece of newsprint because when I get to the edges, I really do want to try to use this entire sheet of paper. So when I get to an edge, I want to be able to cross over and stencil over that area. So, and I don't want to worry about getting it on my cutting mat or whatever is underneath my tabletop. And so sometimes if I have a long brush, I feel like it's too loose, I'll kind of squeeze like a little bit further onto the bristles to tighten it up. I feel like it's too flexible. You can see I'm overlapping, and I don't have to worry because I have newsprint underneath. And I'm also not worried about the back of the sheet as I go along. If it gets messy and I start moving it around, it doesn't matter because this is the only side that's going to show. We're going to glue these down. We're going to be covering boards with this paper. Move way over here to do this one. So this is a very strong ink pad. That's why I keep getting these dark spots, because it's really loaded with ink. So I'm trying not to pounce so hard. And then what I'm doing is starting on the surface of the Mylar and then brushing in. And then when I've made those dark spots, it's because I went right onto the paper instead of pulling the ink from the surface of the Duralar. That's going to give you a softer image. What I love about this process is the looseness of it. You know, it's got a structure because it has that sharp edge, but you get this kind of powdery finish, and then they're irregular. Like some are going to be darker and lighter than others. And I just really enjoy that aspect of it. So I'm gonna come down here to the edge. You probably can't see, it's off camera, but push it up a little bit there. I'm on the edge again here at the edge of the paper. Because if I do it this way, and if I don't stay just focused in the center of the paper, I'm gonna get a useful piece that I can use all, you know, I can cut up to the edge, and that's what I want to do there. So I'm going to go ahead and just do this completely on, this is like the process video. I'm really going to show you how, I'm not going to stop the video. You know, if you want to watch and or do it along with me, I encourage that, because it's, I mean, personally, I've done things like this myself where I'm learning how to do something, and doing it along with someone who's talking and kind of just doing it, it's really relaxing. I find it to be relaxing and soothing right now. And to watch somebody make something is always cool. And you don't have to pay attention to every moment of this. It does feel kind of nice. Yes. And the more you do this, the better you're going to get. You know, you'll kind of get a feel for how to make it look the way you want it to look. And so they start to look more regular once you kind of get going a little bit. It's almost like, oh, you know what? I kind of want to go back to that heavy. How do I do that again? And you can do it. You can just kind of build it up instead of doing it from a mistake, which was how I first did it. But now it's like, oh, you know what? I kind of like that. I want to make another one that has a little dark spot like that. One more up here, and then I'm going to start using the interior piece to make some shapes. And I might do some that are a different color of the same stencil. I'm just doing it. I mean, it's really a composition exercise, because I'm looking at what I've done and going, you know, okay, wait, where do I need to balance this out? And I'm good with this for right now. I'm going to stop with this one. I'm going to pick up, I'm going to go ahead and close this. Move on to a different color. I'm going to do this green with this one. So now that's the interior of this one that I just saved when I cut it. And now I'm going to stencil out the edges. Sometimes I won't even use the whole piece, you know, because my hand's in the way. It's a little hard to get to that area. So I can kind of hold it in place. think about what do I want to do. And I can also just go, I don't know what I want to do. Just do it. And don't worry about it. Figure it out. Once you do something, you can then react to that. So I started to slide it, so I was like, okay, I guess we're done with that. So here I'm going to overlap one of those. This is the one where your hands do start to get a little dirty, a little bit of ink getting on my fingertips. So it's good to have, what I like to do, and honestly, I didn't do this, I might have to pause and come back, is set up like a little damp paper towel. So I'll take a paper towel, kind of run it under the spigot for just a second and squeeze out the water, and it's damp. And then set it over where I'm not going to get my paper wet, but then I can wipe my fingertips as I'm working. Some of these bristles are starting to come out, and that's what you're seeing here. You can kind of, like, that started pretty heavy, but I started in the center of the stencil, so it was okay. Kind of softened it up, but I can kind of keep going back over it a little bit and kind of blend it. It reminds me of like watching a makeup tutorial and watching someone blend their edges. Are you people who don't know what I'm talking about? But I'm a fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, and so I love to watch the queens put makeup on and to blend. So that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm thinking about when I do this a little bit. That one's pretty heavy. Might have to do one down here that, maybe I'll do that one. It's not an overlap. This ink dries really quickly. And so that's why I'm like, I've got my pad laying on top of what I already did because it's dry already. And I guess it's possible that if you do it heavy enough, it's not going to stay dry. So just be careful about that. But I'm being a little cavalier. You know, don't worry about it. Okay, that feels better. Way over here. Doing it off the edge of the paper. Every once in a while I look up, I'm like, is this showing? What am I doing? You know, being aware of whether I am doing this a video here, so trying to make sure I'm still showing what I'm doing. My hand, like with that, sorry about that. That's like my hand's right on top of what I'm doing. It's a little hard to. Be completely conscious of that. But. And I think I'm getting, you can kind of see the color starting to change. And I think maybe there was some old ink in this brush, or maybe I'm picking up some of that gold in the background. What I'm going over with it, I don't know, something's happening, but it seems like it's getting a little darker. And if I really was like, I don't like this, if I was doing like an edition of this and I really wanted to keep it consistent, I would probably wash my brush and move on to something else maybe for a little while and come back. But I'm not gonna worry about it. Okay. I'm gonna stop with that. So I'm gonna go grab a paper towel and I'm gonna come back because I need to wipe off my fingertips. They're green. So I'm gonna go do that and come back and I'll show you the paper towel. Okay, so I went and got just a wet paper towel. I mean, this is like, okay, really, you're showing us this wadded thing. But what I do is I just run it under one time, like real quick, and then squeeze it so that the water kind of distributes into the paper towel. And then I lay it out like a little rectangle like that. And I made 2 of them. I'm going to leave this one wadded up so I can have another one. But I like to set it over where there's nothing there so that I can just reach over and do that. And the other one I'm just going to set away for if I need it. But I do want to make sure it stays away from what I'm working on. So it's like way over here so that I can reach. I'll just have to reach over and do it. But I just want to make sure my area where I'm working is not getting damp because it's not real wet, but it's damp, which is helpful. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop with that. And let's see, maybe I'll do my lightning bolt now. I'm going to do that blue. Let me think, do I want to do red lightning bolts? Blue, because this is my other color. These are my 2 colors. I'm going to do red ones. I don't know, too bad. I mean, they're going to be pale red anyway. I'm not going to be too wild, too intense, because this is the thing with this process is the ink is very transparent. It's a real pinky red, not my favorite. Again, if I was going to addition it, I would be like, oh, I don't like this color. I got to find a different ink. So I want it to be more of an orangey tomato red. Doing this on purpose where I start heavy on one end and kind of get pale. I don't know, I like how that looks. I'm trying to stay in one direction with these. And the grain of my paper, I didn't talk about that, is running like this short on the sheet because it's the half sheet of the pastel paper. So just know, and you'll have to check that again while you're working, but I already know that. So I'm kind of purposely doing these lightning bolts in this direction. So hold it firm in one spot. And if it kicks up for a second, like that one did, just kind of don't panic and let it drop back down. And you're probably going to be all right. It's probably going to be fine. It does, you know, where there's little points and things, push up a little bit. Like these little points, they can get wrinkled and get kind of folded. But just don't worry too much about it. It's probably going to be not that noticeable if it does happen. It's unless it is it gets moved and it gets folded or broken, then you have a problem. But if it's just one little swipe, no big deal. This is kind of cool to do this on a screen, because then I can look at the design and decide if, you know, I like where things are. If I want to add something more at the edge or whatever, I can do that. I like that about it. However, let me say this about that. We're not going to be using this full sheet. We're going to be using a section of it when we cut it up to cover a book. And because of that, just be aware that you're never going to see this unless you decide, I love this and I want to keep this sheet forever. You're not going to see this in its entirety again. So sometimes, you know, a sheet will look great by itself, and then when you start to take it apart, it's like, oh, I liked it better, you know, and vice versa too, because you can have a thing where you think it's not that great, and then you take one little section of it and it's awesome, you know, so by itself. So that's when we make paste paper, that will sometimes happen where you make a full sheet and you're like, yeah, I'm not that excited about it. But then when you cut it down and use just one little piece, it's really great. So if you make your sheet and you're like, I wish I had done this, I wish I had done that, or whatever, I would say don't worry about it too much, because we're going to be cutting this up into smaller sections. Okay, so I'm going to stop with the red. My fingers look okay, but I'm still going to take a second. I always make sure you close the ink pads while you're working, because they'll dry out. You don't want to have that happen. So now I'm going to use that teal green. Let me take a second and wipe. The other thing you might want to have nearby, and I wouldn't use a paper towel for this. This is another thing I didn't set up, but is like a cotton, like a towel, like an old kind of crummy towel that you use for like dusting or something cruddy, you know, cleaning up yuck. So that you can take your brushes, and if you need to, if they get too loaded or whatever, you can brush it off. So it would be like, if this were a dry towel, you could see, now that's going to take off a lot because it's damp. But if you had a dry cloth, that's what I would suggest maybe having on the other side. If you're making a lot, we're making one sheet in this demo at least, you know, don't worry about it too much. But it's something to know about, especially if you're going to addition, if you're going to make a set, you know, of 10 or whatever, you'd want to have that. Okay, now I'm going to do the last one, last color. It's this teal green. I'm just going to start right here. So this was just made with the Japanese screw punch. I used like 3 different bits, and you can see the bigger ones are the easier ones because the ink can get through, but you get down here with these little dots, and I'm going to show you. You know, you think that's a great idea, but it actually is not that easy to get the ink through there. It's not that much bigger than the bristle. So I mean, this looks like powder. I don't even know if you can see that. This is up here. You can see, like, this is a fun one because you're really gonna connect your piece with this one. So I kind of showed working large to small. Don't necessarily have to do that. You could do the opposite. You could cover this sheet with these dots and let that be your big background and work forward with larger things. But it's, you know, that's up to you and how you work and how you think and whatever. But this is what I decided to do. And so then I'm going to invert it so that the weight of the dots, the larger dots is down at the bottom and going up here. And you can see that I tried to keep the hole punch in the center of this piece, because if I start getting out here, I could swipe off the edge. And if I do, again, not the end of the world, not going to show that much. It's going to be one little section. But just, you know, you have to be aware of all that stuff. Like that. So for the book arts class, again, the assignment is to make one of these little half sheets to use for your project. And to, you know, I want to see that separately. I want to see the full finished sheet before you cut it up as part of the project. But if you get to where you just love this process, I would suggest making it for other things in this class, because from here on out, we're going to be making covers, hard covers that we glue with, I want to say paste paper, decorative paper for the cover of the book. So we're going to use book board that we cover with paper. So you're going to want to have a little supply, unless you just want all your books to be a solid color, which is fine. You won't love it as much as others will, because it's not as fun. You know, it's just not as interesting. Trying to decide what I want to do here. I'm gonna go small there. So I've kind of got a good concentration in the center of these dots. Now I want to work on the edges. Right, about done with that. Looking in the camera, I want to go this edge. I might want to go at the top. I'm just going to go just a little strip right here. Down. Oh, I pulled. Got a little shadow going there. I think it's because it came through the back. I can see a little offset. It's consistent, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. I don't know how that happened. Maybe it was from when I was doing another one. Kind of offset on the back. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop with that. All right, so that's how you make a decorative piece of paper with stencils. And that's what I want you to do for your assignment for the accordion books. Make at least one of these. And then you can also, like, I went ahead, you know, when I was doing the videos for prepping the materials, I just used plain sheets of paper, and I now I want to decorate those. So I am actually going to do that, just not on camera, so that when I'm making the books, you're going to see decorative paper that I did with stencils, but that is not demonstrated. I only demonstrated on this sheet. And because this is really the assignment, this is what I want you guys to do, at least one of these. All right, thanks. See you later.